What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. And this one is some early thoughts ahead of the Game Week 37 deadline. So I'm going to talk about Ollie Watkins, what to do with Palace players, whether Jamie Vardy is worth bringing in this week, a quick look at my team and more as well. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. So let's start with Ollie Watkins. Lots of people going to be thinking about bringing him in this week ahead of Spurs at home in 37 and Man United away in 38. General opinion is, if you want to get Watkins, it's probably a good transfer this week. When I look at 37 and 38 individually, I think 38 has better fixtures to target. So like Bournemouth against Leicester, Arsenal against Southampton. Whereas in 37, you've got Everton against Southampton, Leicester against Ipswich. Less players you'd probably want to bring in. But when I look at the 2 weeks combined, Watkins has got to be one of the best attackers to target. His ownership is quite low. So although he's had the most transfers in out of all forwards so far this week, his ownership's not going to suddenly skyrocket to 100%. He's nailed on because Rashford is injured, and Rashford can't play Game Week 38 anyway because he's on loan. The minutes look good. I know there was some worry from Game Week 35 when he only played 70 minutes, but it was 90 minutes in Game Week 36. And as I said on the deadline stream, we have to assume that his minutes are going to be better rather than not because there is no Rashford. There's no other player to play number 9. So I would not be surprised if he plays 90 minutes in both of these games. And importantly, he's playing against two rubbish sides who both have eyes on Europe. Now, Spurs will probably put out a slightly stronger team in 37 than they did in 36. But how good is Spurs' strong team? How good is Man United's strong team? They're where they are in the league for a reason. They have not been very good. And even if Spurs do put out a strong-ish side, they're all going to have one eye on Europe. You don't want to get injured in a game like that before a European final. And in the Man United game, if Man United have won it, then there's going to be celebrations. That team in 38, who cares, right? They're not getting relegated. They've won the Europa League. And then they got a final match away from home. So it's important for Villa because they're still chasing Champions League. So they're going to be putting out a full-strength team. They are certainly not on the beach. Watkins' minutes are probably the best they've been all season. And he's playing two rubbish sides. So the chances are, if you're selling a forward to get him, that's probably a good move. And you could also argue that Watkins is one of the best captains this week as well. So Crystal Palace players, what do we do with them this week? They've got Wolves at home in 37 and Liverpool away in 38. But importantly, that Wolves game in 37 is 3 days after the FA Cup final. So the deadline's on Friday. They'll play their FA Cup final game on Saturday. Then it'll be the Wolves game on Tuesday. So we won't know what's happened in the FA Cup in terms of has it gone to extra time, has any players picked up injuries and stuff like that. And we won't hear from Glasner ahead of Wolves before the 37 deadline. So general advice would be do not buy Crystal Palace players this week. It's only really one good fixture left anyway. I know Liverpool have got nothing else to play for, but I'm not targeting Liverpool away in 38. So do not buy Palace players. I've already seen that after Eze's 16-pointer in Game Week 36, he's had the most transfers in for midfielders. Absolutely pointless transfer in my opinion. Will these players get rested in 37? I think the honest answer is nobody has a clue. Everyone will have an opinion, but no one can say for certain, myself included. There's the narrative that it's the final home game, and so they'll want to put out a full-strength side. And generally, Glasner does put out a full-strength side. I know some people have been worried about rotation the last couple of game weeks. It just hasn't happened. So there's that viewpoint. But if they win the FA Cup, there's going to be loads of celebrations. Crystal Palace have never won the FA Cup. That would be massive for Glasner, especially beating Man City. Do you think 3 days later they're going to roll out a full-strength side? I just don't necessarily see it. And do you really think the crowd are going to care when they rock up with the FA Cup trophy if, like, Eze and Sarr and Mateta aren't starting? Probably not. Now, it's worth saying that Man City will be favourites for that final, and they will be odds on to win. But you never know, right? Crystal Palace are playing well at the moment. Man City are doing okay, not against Southampton. They have had some good results recently, generally. But you just don't know in a match like this, right? Crystal Palace could win. Let's say they lose, then yes, I think the chances are that the side Glasner puts out against Wolves will probably be full strength. But it's still not a guarantee. What if they've played 120 minutes? Why not give them a rest? They've got nothing to play for in the league. So I think this is not one of those black and white things. I think often people want to say they're definitely going to play, they're definitely going to miss out. We just have to accept there's some risk there. So do not buy them. I think if you've got a choice between benching a Palace player and another player and the decision is close, I'd probably lean towards benching the Palace player. And I think if you've got spare transfers to sell them, I would consider doing that as well, especially Mateta. Ever since that injury picked up before the international break, he hasn't played more than 75 minutes. And a couple of times he's been subbed off pre-60. There's lots of good forwards at the moment. And if you've got the money to do Mateta to Watkins, that feels like a no-brainer. With Eze and Sarr, they're quite differential and their minutes have been very good. Eze in particular has been brilliant recently. But I'd still lean towards benching him or selling him if you've got a move that makes sense. For my team, for example, I'm going to show you later on, I might bench Sarr and Munoz and play Eze. But that's because I don't have the money to make the move I want to make and I probably won't take a hit. For you, it might be a little bit different. So do not buy them. And I think for the most part, you're benching 37 and 38 or looking to sell because the minutes in 37 are just not guaranteed. It's of course possible that they all start, but we just won't know, and that's the problem. So let's talk about defenders for game weeks 37 and 38. I said on the stream last night that for the most part, I wouldn't bother making any more defender transfers for the rest of the season. There's probably more upside in moving attackers instead, and I do stand by that. There's always going to be people out there that have got the perfect attack and need to change defenders instead. Fair enough, but for the majority of people watching, that's not the case. And the reason that I say there's higher upside in attackers is just there's not that one defender out there that's got really good attacking numbers, amazing fixtures, is nailed on, and is playing for a team that has something to play for. I just don't think that defender exists. And it's not to say there's no options at all, but you don't have like a Trent in a Liverpool side that are still in a title race that has Leicester at home and Southampton away or something like that. Like you look at the list I've got here, like Wan-Bissaka is not a bad option at all. Forest at home, Ipswich away. But West Ham have nothing to play for. Wan-Bissaka is somewhat attacking, but he's not a Trent or a Trippier back in the day or, a Gabriel from set pieces or anything like that. He can, of course, go and get you an attack and return. He literally did that this week. And Forest at home, Ipswich away is not bad, but he's not a player to get excited about. Same with Cucurella. Chelsea still have to get Champions League, so I think their team in 37 and 38 will be strong. His attacking numbers are not bad. Man United at home, Forest away. Again, it's not bad, but it's nothing to get excited about. If you need someone for this week, you've got Everton defenders against Southampton, which is good. You've got Arsenal defenders against Southampton in 38. Ain't Nuri, Palace away, Brentford at home. Like, Palace away might not be a bad fixture after the FA Cup. Brentford have still got something to play for. And I just don't think the Wolves defence is that great. Vardy, I love. Goal threat, decent. Playing in a decent Man City team, of course. Bournemouth at home, 3 days after the FA Cup. He's fine. I'm going to play him, right? I'm not selling him. I've got no real plans to do that. So he's fine to keep, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get him. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. There's no amazing player that stands out as so obvious to get. If you need a new defender over the final 2 weeks and you've already got Vardy, then Cucurella and Wan-Bissaka I quite like. And I don't mind Arsenal defenders for Newcastle at home, Southampton away either. But that's about it. There's really not too many others. Like, if I go down the defender list, I think people will mention Liverpool defenders like Connor Bradley. I think it's quite likely that Connor Bradley starts the last 2 games. Like Arne Slot has mentioned that he needs to get minutes now that he's going to be their first choice right back, although they might buy someone in the summer. But right now, with Trent leaving, Bradley is first choice. Is it absolutely guaranteed that he starts 38? Trent's last home game. If I had to bet, I think Bradley will start, but absolutely Trent is getting subbed on. Could that be before the 60th minute? Is there enough upside there? If I had Connor Bradley in my squad, I wouldn't sell him. I'd probably start him in both of those games, but I'm not sure I would buy him. And then you've got like Brentford defenders. I mean, Fulham at home, Wolves away, they've got something to play for. They're trying to get 8th spot. Not bad, but Brentford defence is not very good. So I just don't see massive upside in defenders, which is why I would concentrate my transfers on attackers instead. But if I was looking to get someone, I actually quite like Cucurella. I think if Wan-Bissaka starts the final 2, despite West Ham having nothing to play for, he's pretty good as well. Never discount Vardy, never discount Arsenal defenders. Everton looks solid this week. But you wouldn't want to play an Everton defender against Newcastle in 38. So Marmoush was benched for Man City against Southampton in game week 36. What should people do with him moving forward? Now, obviously, if you don't own him, don't buy him. There's just too much risk there with Haaland back. If you've got him in your squad, the obvious thing is also just to sell him and relieve yourself from that headache. So if you can go and buy Watkins, great. If you can move down to a Visser, Wood, you've got the spare transfer, it's probably worth doing. He could start against Bournemouth at home in 37 and Fulham away in 38, but you're going to be checking the team sheet as soon as it comes out because there's no guarantee he starts. And also, a bit like with Crystal Palace players, Bournemouth at home is 3 days after the FA Cup final. What if Marmoush starts that game and plays 120 minutes? What if he goes and gets injured or something like that? Palace and Man City players in general are at slightly more risk for game week 37. So if you've got the spare move, I would get rid of him. If you're in a position where you don't want to take hits and you've got something else to do instead, I don't completely hate holding on to him because the fact they drew 0-0 with Southampton and he missed out kind of gives him a good opportunity to get back in. And I think he probably will start the FA Cup final. And he's got a chance of starting both Bournemouth at home and Fulham away. That benching against Southampton was only the second time it's happened since he joined the club. So there is a chance he starts both games. So would I take him out for a hit before Bournemouth? Probably not if it's just a standard move to someone else. But if you're selling him for someone cheaper and that unlocks funds to make a bigger move elsewhere, I think I would do it. Because there's no guarantee he starts, even though there is a chance. And again, you've just got that headache in the final 2 weeks. And it's 3 days after the FA Cup final. So do not buy. I think if you've got a spare transfer, definitely sell. And even for a -4, I'd be tempted, especially if it's an impactful move elsewhere. So let's say you're doing Marmoush to Visser, and that unlocks funds to go and get Saka or Palmer or whoever it is you want. I think I'd probably do that. So for those of you looking for a new cheap forward this week, look no further than Jamie Vardy. 5.3 million, about to play his final ever home game for Leicester, and it's against Ipswich at home. The only fixture better for Leicester is Southampton at home. So it's a decent fixture, final home game, all the narratives are there, and to top it off, he only needs one more goal to hit 200 for Leicester. Surely it's fate that he's going to get it this week. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not essential. You do not need to rush out and buy Jamie Vardy. There's a reason that Leicester are getting relegated. There's a reason he's only on 3.5 points per game for the entire season. But if you need someone cheap specifically for 37, I like him. He could absolutely walk away with a goal, maybe even 2 returns if you get really lucky. It is Bournemouth away in 38, not so great. And so I wouldn't necessarily want to play him in both of the final 2 games. But that Ipswich game in particular, I really like him. So if you can bring him in, and that gives you the money to make another move, and then you can just bench him in 38, it feels kind of perfect to me. And look, I'm all for the great stats, great fixtures, penalties, all this kind of stuff that I talk about all season. But I'm also human, right? And these kind of narratives I like towards the end of the season. So he's my preferred cheap forward for 37. The other one that people are going to look at is Beto at Everton. Really like him as well. Southampton at home is a great fixture. Everton are a stronger team. I would expect Everton to score more goals than Leicester for sure this week. But individually, I think Vardy stacks up pretty well against Beto. Also, Everton probably have more attacking options they can play as well. It's nice that Beto played 90 minutes against Fulham. Before that, it was 76 against Ipswich, 63 against Chelsea. Calvert-Lewin's back now as well. And if Njai's on the pitch, presumably he'll take penalties. For Leicester, we know it'll be Vardy, especially when he's chasing that 200 goal mark. So I really like Beto as well, but it's not like he's got a much better fixture in 38. It's Newcastle away. So 1 week only, those are the 2 that I would probably look at. You've got someone like Delap as well, not for Leicester, for Ipswich, who has 2 better fixtures to end. So it's Leicester away, of course, and then West Ham at home final day. But his minutes have not been good recently, 61, 67, 70. I'm just not sure I would bother going there. So if you're looking specifically for a cheap forward, I like Vardy. I just can't tear myself away from that narrative, but I think Beto is really good as well. They are the 2 that I would look at. But if you've got the money to go to like a Wood or Visser, they're still the preferred option. So let's have a quick early look at my team for game week 37. I've only got the 1 free transfer, but I do have 3.1 million in the bank after doing Marmoush to Visser in game week 36, which I kind of regret at this point, because not only did he blank, but it also meant that I've not got the money this week to bring in like a Palmer or a Saka. So I'm not quite sure what to do there. I think whether or not I want to get Palmer or Saka really depends on captaincy. I think it's wide open this week. Some people are going to go for Watkins. Some are just going to default to Salah. Some might stick to Mbeumo. Some might go for Palmer because Chelsea are going to have to put out a full-strength side and they're playing Man United at home. Man United have been terrible. I think the captain's armbands will be all over the place. It's about who I want to go for. And I really like the idea of going for Palmer because his ownership's so low, but it's now going to cost me a hit to get him in, unless I sell Salah, which I'm just not going to do. So that's something I really need to think about. If I want to take a hit, then Isak down to a cheaper forward, Vardy down to a cheaper defender, Munoz potentially even to like a Mikalenko, gives me the money to do Eze to Palmer. So there's lots to think about there, but I don't know if it's worth a -4. So I might just captain Salah or Mbeumo instead. You'll see that I've currently got Sarr and Munoz benched. So I'm playing Nico Williams instead of Munoz and Evan Nielsen instead of Sarr. On paper, Nico Williams and Evan Nielsen are worse options. West Ham away and Man City away rather than Wolves at home. But that's what I was talking about earlier as a kind of safety thing. I don't know if Munoz and Sarr are going to play. There are players that could play instead of them. It's not a guarantee, I don't think, for this specific game week. If they lose, sure, but we won't know whether that's happened before the deadline. And then I've got Eze there because he's more of a differential than Sarr. That might not be the case after this week because he did so well in game week 36, but it's been the case for many weeks. And I think Eze is just the better option right now either way. They're both really good. Like Sarr came really close to getting a goal against Spurs, so don't write him off as an option. But I think if I'm playing one of the two, it's going to be Eze, and there's also more of a chance that he would take a penalty as well. I kind of want to sell Eze, but I think I only really want Saka or Palmer. I don't think I want to go like straight to a Bowen or something like that. I think I'd rather save my transfer and target fixtures in 38 instead. So that's kind of my big decision. Do I go for the big captaincy this week, or do I just roll 2 free transfers next week and maybe bring in another Bournemouth player against Leicester at home? I've already got Evan Nielsen waiting. Maybe get Saka next week, but do it for free against Southampton. Possibly look at like a Martinelli, who might even be playing number 9 for Arsenal against Southampton. That could be decent. So I just feel like for the most part, next week is better. But I do have the option, as it stands, to do Isak to Watkins, which I could just do in one move. But again, I'm not sure I will do that. But if I do make it right now, that gives me 3.5 budget. And that lets me do Eze to Saka in one move. And that would give me Saka for 38, but also Watkins for 37 and 38. But it's a -4. And I've only taken one hit all season, and that was to cover the blank. So I'm not sure if it's worth it. And Watkins is getting quite heavily transferred in. So he's probably going to go up in price. And I do not want to make an early transfer. Not at this stage of the season. There's just too much to be gained with information. It's just not worth it. So I don't think I'm going to get to Friday and still be able to afford that. But it is playing on my mind. As I get Watkins for the captaincy this week, and I've got Saka ready for game week 38. One other reason that I'm not super convinced about doing it is I then don't have a move for 38. I can play Saliba against Southampton, Vardy against Fulham, and Livramento against Everton. I don't need to make a defender move. I wouldn't be able to afford Sarr to like Semenyo, so I'd have no money in the bank. And I definitely wouldn't want to take another hit. So I'd have no move to make. Like I could move Mbeumo to Bowen, for example, just in one move, but it's not a transfer that is like a massive. Like it's not something that I really want to do, is what I'm trying to say. So that's why I'm kind of put off by the Watkins move. But I don't know. I'm just not 100% sure what to do. I think in 38 I want to captain Saka. I think he will be somewhat of a differential captain, even though lots of people will consider it, and especially the more he blanks in an Arsenal shirt in the league. Less people will want to go there. I already saw comments yesterday after he blanked against Liverpool. Why would you want to buy Saka right now? But I still think his minutes will be good. The other thing about rolling into 38 is you've got information about exactly what teams need in the final game week. So, for example, if Arsenal beat Newcastle, Champions League secure. So they might rotate more against Southampton. So is it a bit risky to go for Saka this week? That's all the things that you can gain. So I'm very tempted to roll, knowing that 37 probably won't be great for me. I think other people out there will have a better side than I do. But if I can get through with minimal damage, I think having 2 free transfers in 38 will be quite big. So I think as it stands, I'm probably going to roll, and then it's captain Salah against Brighton away or Mbeumo against Fulham at home. I'm on Salah, but I might switch. I'm not sure about that. And then goalkeeper, I might reward Martinez for the last 2 weeks by playing him against Spurs at home instead of Raya against Newcastle at home. If I keep Isak, I'll probably reduce the amount of Arsenal defenders I've got and just play Martinez. So that's how it looks. We'll see how I feel when we get to team selection on Thursday. I'll talk about it again then. If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll be back tomorrow with transfer tips. I'll catch you then.